Welcome to the 8-week progression. So, when you first log in, you may have found that there are more than just these two programs on your site. What I want you to do is I want you to ignore everything else for right now and focus on this 8-week progression support information and the 8-week progression workouts. I have split this into two different sections. The workout section is simply that. It's each of your workouts. So if we go into that, you will see you have week one, day two, day three, and then you'll have week two, day one, day two, day three, week three, day one, day two, day three. And each of these has, if you go into it, the workout that you will be doing on that day. Okay, so it's as simple as that. As if you just want to follow the workouts, you just simply go through each day, one day at a time. All right, you will also notice that in the week one overview, you have an overview here and you have your trackers to download. So you can download your week one tracker so you can track when you've done your workouts, if you've done some walking for your cardio. And each week we have a nutrition focus. So there's water and then there's protein. And as we go through the program, we even get into a 3-week meal plan, which is optional. That's something that you can do if you wish. There are also PDF downloads for the workouts. So if you're not somebody who wants to do the work along video, or maybe you're going to a gym and you just want a PDF so you can follow it along, then you can download those here as well. And then it goes into a little bit of information about that focus. The next section will always be the exercise instructions. This will take you to another site where you have little 2-minute videos of each of the exercises that are in each week that you're doing. So if, for example, you are looking at the PDF, then and say, I've got no idea what that overhead reach is, there is a link that will take you to that 2-minute video on the PDF, or you can come into this area and go straight into that by searching for overhead reach or whichever exercise you are doing. All right. That's basically it for each week. Day 3 and day 6 are optional days. They are mobility and stretching days. They're super important. So if you are able to spend that extra 15 minutes to do them, then I highly recommend that you do. Up here, you will see a little bit of exercise information. So I suggest looking at these 3 videos, setting up the exercises in the different positions. So if you have an anterior tilt, I will say to set up for an exercise slightly differently than if you have a posterior or neutral tilt. So that anterior tilt is when that lumbar spine or your lower spine has quite a arch in it and your ribs are probably a little forward flared. So you kind of see that big arch that you have in your spine. So watch that, especially if you think that maybe you have that anterior tilt. Then the different TVA engagement cues. If you haven't been to a pelvic floor PT or you haven't done work with me previously and you're not 100% sure about what engagement cue you should use, then that is an excellent video to watch as well. The using the bands is just if you've never used bands before, and that will help you set them up in different areas of your house depending on what you have available. All right. So before you start, the only other thing to look at is a little bit of the information in here. Now, as we go, depending on when you're watching this video, you may find that there is even more information into this area. I don't want you to panic. You do not need to have watched all of this information before you start the program. There is just a couple of key videos that I suggest watching, and then the rest will be things that you can do as you have that question. So maybe you baby wear and you're like, how do I just set this up? So you can come to that everyday movement section and check that out. Maybe you hear me talking about stacking your rib cage over your pelvis or something about your alignment, then you can come into this alignment section and check it out. You don't need to have done it all the way through before you start. It's basically here for you if you're like, I want a little bit of extra information on that. That's what this section is for. However, a couple of things to do look at is the overview, sort of looking at what exercise is required. This teaches you how to use the videos so that you can skip to certain areas of the videos with chapters. It tells you how to save to your homepage. So all the basics of getting the most out of this. And then I do suggest taking your measurements and your photos before you start so you can compare how you look after the 8 weeks as well. Then there is a little bit here. Most of these are things that you might already know, and again, more information. But this release work section may be super interesting for you. If you've had a C-section and you need to do some scar release, if your obliques are really tight, so you have that bread loafing look, if you have forward flared ribs, or you just know that you need some release work in, then that section will be super important. If you have any pelvic floor dysfunction, leaking, tightness, that side of things, then the pelvic floor information may be of use to you. All right, that's enough for now. Hopefully this has helped you. Remember, you don't need to go through all of this. Basically, I suggest just checking out the 8-week overview, the equipment required. Make sure you understand how to navigate through the program. And then if you think you might need some release work, look at that pelvic floor. Otherwise, jump into the workouts. Start with your day one when you're ready to start. And then after that, just keep moving through and then use the support information as you feel like you need more information. Ask me any questions in the Facebook group as well. I will be in there a couple of times a week to answer those questions. And have a great time with this program. Just follow the process, trust it. Start with week 1, carry on through. If at any point you find a week was pretty hard for you, you can repeat that week as well. So let's just say you get to week 3 and you're like, that was hard. I'm not sure I'm ready to progress. Then do week 3 for a second week and then move on to week 4. There is no rush for this. You're not losing access after 8 weeks. So take your time, make sure you feel comfortable before moving on to the next week.